Happy game day, everybody. I'm Matt Scalisi here for another Alabama pregame show. This week brought to you by All South Appliance, who is sponsoring all of our Alabama versus Georgia coverage this week. Joining me, Ben Flanagan here, my friend at AL.com. Ben, what a strange week this has been, and what a strange morning it has already been leading into this huge game.
Yeah, it just seems to fit with the 2020 theme, right? Where you just never know what you're going to get with the year, let alone this college football season. But it's been strange, to say the least.
Yeah, so we're as we are drinking our morning beverages, our coffee this morning, we're poring over news that is continuing to roll in over the course of the morning about Nick Saban and his current status in terms of his latest testing for COVID-19. We know that Nick Saban tested positive, possibly tested positive twice, according to the release that the university sent out earlier this week, but has tested negative on Thursday. And we found out this morning tested negative again yesterday. And according to SEC rules, if he tests negative again today, which we will find out sometime early this afternoon, he will be allowed to be on the sidelines and coach again tonight. Nick Saban says, by the way, first of all, that he has no symptoms. He says he has never at any point felt any symptoms this week. So there doesn't seem to be any concern on his part in terms of his actual health. The question, I think, is he possibly a risk to spread a disease to anybody else? And that's really the only reason why these tests are being administered at this point. This is definitely, we've heard Nick Saban in the past talk about distractions and things that take away from focusing on the game. I can't remember a week where we were talking about something other than football leading up to a game more than this week.
Yeah, does this mean that Nick Saban is sort of bigger than college football in a way, or like bigger than Alabama football? Because this is a big game. And I think that, look, it is strange. And like I said, this whole season has been weird. And look, we're waiting with bated breath to see what Tom Rinaldi might say, our own beat reporters who are keeping close watch on this. Me personally, I'm keeping an eye out for Saban's daughter, Kristen's Twitter account for the third heart, Matt, to see if we know for sure that Saban is in the clear to coach this game. It feels like we're on the Bachelorette waiting for that final rose right now to see if we get it and we can see Nick Saban fly into Bryant-Denny Stadium at the last second. I think our friend Mark Burnett tweeted a gif of Sting falling from the rafters in a WCW ring. That's what it's going to feel like if Saban's able to coach this last game. But yeah, I'd refer you to UAB epidemiologists in terms of whether or not Nick Saban could be a spreader of this virus as it relates to him coming to this game. Obviously, we have the knowledge that we have, which is limited on COVID. We're not experts, but as it relates to the football game, it's going to be interesting to see what happens because we've never seen Alabama during his tenure play without him. I think during his tenure, the only thing like it that we've seen was when Joe Paterno was coach of Penn State in the early 2010s. I think when Penn State came to town, or maybe it was up there when he sat in the box and watched as an assistant coach, basically took over as interim head coach for a game. But that's the closest thing we've seen during the Saban era to anything like this. So who knows?
Yeah, and another update on that, by the way, Nick Saban says that they've administered hundreds of tests throughout the program this week and have had no other positives. So according to Nick Saban, there is not any kind of widespread or really any level at all of COVID issues with this team, which is, again, Alabama, if that is in fact the case, Alabama is one of the few programs that has not been affected by it at all since the season started. We started to see this week, we had multiple games canceled and moved. Programs around the league have started to have multiple players pop up with positive COVID tests and have to miss games. So this so far, it appears Alabama has avoided really being affected by that, especially so if Nick Saban's third test comes up negative today.
Yeah, I guess my question too, Matt, is it was reported that when Nick Saban tested positive, in the same report, we saw that athletics director Greg Byrne had tested positive too. And I didn't know if we'd had any update on Greg Byrne, if they were checking him the same way that they are Nick Saban to see if this is a false positive.
with respect to Greg Byrne, doesn't seem to be as much a matter of public interest and urgency as it has been with Nick Saban. I'm sure we will get an update on him at some point. But I think it's believable that Greg Byrne possibly could have contracted it with no one else in the program doing so, because of the fact that Greg Byrne was interacting in a different way when they were in Oxford last week. For the most part, that seems to be, that they seem to be pretty confident that this is not something that spreads while teams are on the field with each other. There's no known cases of that happening yet. But being in a press box, being in a athletic director's box with a bunch of other people, I think most of the guidelines would say there's some chance for exposure there. So Greg Byrne, was in a different situation entirely than Nick Saban was throughout their time in Oxford last week. So it's totally possible he could be affected and nobody else.
Yeah, and Matt, and let's be real here. COVID is obviously serious business, and if Nick Saban indeed has COVID, and if Greg Byrne has COVID, it's important to stop and wish them well. And we'll see we'll see if Saban has a false positive or not. If he's on the sideline today, they will obviously believe that to be true. But it's just interesting how we're so focused on this football game, right? And we're so focused to see if Nick Saban will be on that sideline and if they can play with their coach. But again, if he indeed has coronavirus, and even if he's asymptomatic, we wish him and his family well.
Absolutely. Yeah. So look, hopefully this all turns out to have been a testing error, and we'll see how it goes. But let's get into the game a little bit today, Ben. This is obviously a huge game in college football. I'd say arguably the biggest one that we've seen in the sport this year so far, highest profile. Primetime kickoff in Bryant-Denny Stadium. Alabama and Georgia obviously do not have a boring recent history. They really haven't played a game that didn't matter in quite some time, probably going back to 2015. And that game at least felt like it mattered going into it. May not have once it was over with. But I think this feels pretty high stakes on both sides. But Ben, what about it specifically, I think, are you sort of most excited about or most looking forward to today?
Well, on paper, it just seems like an even matchup, and it's so rare that we get matchups like this so early in the season that could really paint a clear picture for what the college football season will look like down the road. Now, I've joked this week that this game doesn't even matter, because no matter what happens today, if both of these teams win out, then they'll probably play each other again in the SEC championship. So they'll have the real rubber match that will determine the fate of the college football playoff. But specifically to this game, what I'm looking forward to is if Alabama's defense will rise to the occasion. They obviously gave up 647 yards against Ole Miss last week, against an offense that ranks second nationally in total offense. And thankfully for Alabama's defense, the Alabama offense bailed them out by gaining 723 yards. So they won. But I wonder, is 1 week long enough for Dylan Moses and obviously the coordinator Pete Golding and the rest of the defense to make the necessary adjustments to get off the field against Georgia's maybe less explosive and spectacular offense, but very balanced offense today? So that's my biggest question. And I think the biggest test will probably come in the first half, when starting safety Jordan Battle is suspended after he was called for targeting against Ole Miss last week. So we'll see how the secondary is tested during the first half.
Definitely, I think where most Alabama fans' concerns lie going into this game right now. I'll just flip it around to the other side and say, Alabama's rushing attack, as it sort of finally exploded last week into what people were hoping it would look like, is going to have a much bigger challenge this week. I will say that I'm excited to see what this rushing attack looks like against what will definitely be a much more talented and well put together unit defensively from Georgia. I think that Alabama's offense obviously can beat you a lot of different ways, but I think that a game like this, where you want to keep the ball out of the opponent's hands as much as possible, you want to dominate time of possession, the rushing attack is going to be important, and Nick Saban's not just going to abandon it, even if it doesn't work early on. So I'm very curious to see what the final ground numbers look like for the Alabama offense after this game. The other side of things for Alabama, in terms of maybe less exciting, what do you feel like is the thing that scares Alabama fans the most? What's the biggest challenge coming into this game?
We've talked about the defense, but I think that's still the story. And if you look at the stats, right, Alabama's total defense ranks 66th in the NCAA right now. And Georgia's offense ranks 34th, whereas Alabama's offense ranks 3rd. Georgia's defense ranks 2nd overall. So it's very interesting. We're only 3 weeks into the season, but I think we have a good idea of what these teams are capable of. In terms of the biggest challenge, though, Matt, I'm just keeping my eye on 3rd down, right? Alabama's 3rd down efficiency on offense ranks 2nd, and they convert 65% of their 3rd downs, which is great. Now, on the other side of that, their defense ranks 69th in terms of their 3rd down defense, and Georgia ranks 24th nationally. So we'll see. Ole Miss converted 9 of 17 3rd downs in Oxford last week, and I feel like if Alabama can't get off the field and they give Georgia's steady offense more opportunities, it might be a long day. So 3rd down's what I'm looking at as the biggest challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to actually zoom out further than that and say I think the biggest challenge today for Alabama is it's not even to do with Georgia. I'm going to say does Alabama have the focus to keep their heads on this game when all week long they know there's been this question about whether their head coach is going to be coaching in this game or not, whether Saban comes out there on the sidelines or not. I think it's been occupying a part of everybody's mind in the program, and Nick Saban hates distractions, as we said. So is this going to be an issue for this team? Is it going to create some kind of confusion or chaos within the program, or can they stay focused on this very huge game and keep their heads on the field for 60 minutes today? I think we're all really probably worse at making predictions in 2020 than we've ever been, Ben, and that's really saying something. But we're gonna attempt some bold predictions here. Give me one for you. It doesn't have to be a win-loss type thing, but just any bold prediction you want to make for something we're going to see today.
I don't think it's bold to predict that Saban will be there coaching Alabama, so let's get that out of the way. I think he's going to be on the sideline. And what you think of the optics of that based on COVID and everything that's led up to it so far, that's another conversation. But I think he's going to coach. My bigger bold prediction, I guess, and I don't know how bold this is either, but I think Alabama's special teams will be tested today. I wonder if the punter can switch the field if and when Georgia stops Alabama on 3rd down, which is going to be a tall task for Georgia because Alabama's offense is so explosive. And I wonder if Alabama can count on Will Reichert today to convert field goal opportunities because he hasn't been truly tested yet. They haven't been in a situation where they need this field goal right now from a distance that might be a little more challenging than he's used to. So I wonder if Will Reichert's going to be able to kick field goals today.
I like that, Ben. That's you dug down deep for that prediction there, but I like that, especially with Scott Cochran coaching the Georgia special teams. We know he's going to be out to make a statement coming into this game and his return to Tuscaloosa. I'm going to go
be a loud statement regardless.
Yeah,
we know that.
That's true. Yeah, I'm gonna go something that probably will more than likely blow up in my face in terms of a prediction, but we're trying to be bold here. So I'm going to say that Alabama gets a non-offensive touchdown this year. We know that they have had a couple so far. It's not exactly the 2016 team where they're scoring them at will all the time, but I think we're going to see one today, and I think that could potentially blow the game open in what I think will otherwise be a pretty close and hard-fought game. I think watch out in the second half when Jordan Battle gets back in there, when Alabama has the personnel that they want on the field defensively. I think that they're going to be a little bit more aggressive than they were last week. I think I don't think they were planning to allow Ole Miss to score on almost every possession, but I think that the game plan was an effort to mitigate what they knew Ole Miss would be really good at. I think they might change things up a little bit this week. And, look, you might give up some scores sometimes, but this Georgia offense is too good to just sit back and let them mow you down and march all over you on the field. I think you have to be aggressive and pick your moments to try and make a big play. And I think it will pay off for Alabama today. So that's what we're looking at right now. There's obviously a lot of stuff that's going to happen between now and 7 p.m. Central when this game kicks off. We will, before then, likely find out whether Nick Saban will be coaching in this game or not. We will see. They may not announce it before the game, but if they do, you will obviously see it on AL.com. You will see it here on our Crimson Tide Facebook page. And we'll be back after the game to talk post-game. We'll have Lauren Sisler with us then. Ben, thank you for joining us, and I hope you enjoy a what looks like a really nice day for being outside, but also watching some football too.
Thanks, Matt. I'll head that way probably mid-afternoon sometime just to scope out the pregame scene. I'll be out there with my camera, and I'll be taking pictures and reporting back on what it looks like out there. But it's a huge game in Tuscaloosa, and we're excited about it. So we'll see what happens.
Well, thanks again to our sponsor, All South Appliance, who is sponsoring all of our Alabama, Georgia coverage this week. You can visit them online at myallsouth.com or any of their showrooms across Alabama, Tennessee, and Florida. Thanks again, everybody, and have a great day, and we will see you tonight.